Indian immigrants in Canada often don't get along. And this is something that you might have heard of or have seen on the YouTube or social media channels or anything of that sort, or you might have experienced this all by yourself. But you would think that when someone is moving into a new country, they would stick together, right? But instead, we see divisions based on region, language, status, even how long someone's been here in these Western countries. And why does this typically happen is some of the things that I see around or you get to experience. Is it really as bad as people often see or say? So today I'm going to break that all down. Hey everyone, my name is Gautam Telugu. Thank you for watching Quick Tales. And if you're new to my channel, I talk about HR, careers, life in Canada, and much more beyond that. And if you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing because it's going to be a win-win. Your journey, my story. When you first move to Canada, you assume your fellow Indians will be your biggest support system, right? After all, we share the same culture, food, and struggles. Of course, this culture varies from the kind of state that you come from, but still, Indian culture is Indian culture. But soon you realize there's an invisible wall between different groups. Punjabis stick with Punjabis, with Tamils, North Indians with North Indians, and so on, so forth, right? And even within those closed groups, there's another level of judgment, which is again PR holders versus students, new immigrants versus established ones, and skilled workers versus truck drivers. So, why does this happen, and why do Indian immigrants, instead of supporting each other, often criticize or judge or distance themselves from one another? Let's explore the reasons. Some of this might surprise you. One of the biggest divide comes from how long you've been in Canada. Like many older immigrants who might have arrived in Canada in the 1990s or the early 2000s, it's typically they moved here decades ago, see new immigrants as too soft. Back in my day, we had no jobs, no internet, and we walked through snowstorms to get to work. But now we're in a better position because of all the infrastructure that might have been created since then. But new immigrants feel older ones are out of touch. They think that things have changed. You have cheaper housing, easier PR pathways, and fewer job restrictions. So typically, this could be a myth as well. So instead of mentoring or guiding, older immigrants often look down on newer ones. And in Britain, what happens is new immigrants avoid or ignore the older ones totally, thinking they're arrogant. And the end result, a disconnect between generations of immigrants. India is pretty diverse, a known fact, and unfortunately, so are its divisions. North versus South. Some North Indians make fun of South Indian accents that I've typically seen when I was in India, because South Indians see North Indians as loud and entitled, and precisely it comes all to the communication skills. And Punjabis versus non-Punjabis. So Punjabis are one of the largest groups in Canada, which is a known fact again, and sometimes this creates a divide. Some non-Punjabis feel excluded in social settings, while some Punjabis believe others don't respect the culture. And I have seen this personally. I walked into a store and someone started speaking to me in Punjabi, but typically I don't know Punjabi, right? So by looks of me, presume that I'm a Punjabi as well, and started communicating in that language. And often hears these stories from many of them where typically there may be 10 to 12 people in that particular team, and almost 70-80% of them would be from Punjab, and they start speaking in Punjabi, and you feel isolated and you would never be able to get along with them unless you get to speak to their language or they don't want to include you in. And with these language barriers, Hindi speakers assume everyone understands Hindi. And Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam, Bengali speakers sometimes feel left out absolutely. And I've been there and I've seen and I've heard from many of them as well. And these divisions might seem like pretty small and normal, but in a new country, they create social bubbles where people only stick with their own. In Canada, job titles don't always reflect the individual's intelligence or the talent that they carry. A doctor from India might be working as a security guard here. You wouldn't know unless you get to speak to that individual, right? And an IT professional might be struggling to find a job while a truck driver earns six figures. Instead of supporting each other, immigrants often judge based on white collar versus blue collar jobs. Like, office workers sometimes look down on labor jobs, While truck drivers or factory workers say, at least we are earning more than you. And the divider also could be possibly between PR versus work permit versus student, right? PR holders often feel superior because they are already established in the country, and students feel frustrated because they are still at the beginning stage, and those on work permits feel stuck in the middle because they don't know where they belong. And this status battle creates resentment instead of unity amongst these people who come from the same country. And many Indian immigrants feel like they're competing for limited opportunities, which is kind of true, but not completely. With jobs, if I help another Indian, they might take my job, kind of thing. And if we might see this in typical business environments as well. If their business succeeds, mine might fail. And I've seen typically people competing with each other while they belong to the same country, speaks the same language. But in networking, why should I refer another Indian for a job? Let them struggle like I did. Let them start from the scratch. Let me not give them any sort of tips to establish their ground thoroughly, right? And instead of a community mindset, many have a scarcity mindset, thinking that someone else's success will take it away from their own. And these are not something which gets created by the time they arrive or land into Canada. And these impressions, or rather these habits, have been there since the time we are in India. I've seen that typically, and I'm sure you all agree with that. And some Indian immigrants actively avoid their own community because they want to blend into Canadian culture. While I'm personally against joining a Telugu or language based community sort of thing, because that's not very, if there were to be like one set of Indian community, why not, right? So I would rather represent India, not my language per se, but it's an individual's perception. And those who want to only be with Canadians start scrutinizing or criticizing other Indians for not learning English well enough. They start distancing themselves from Indian cultural events and prefer making Canadian or other international friends, which is fine. But still, I think it's always good to have a mix or have the respect of your own country people, right? And this typically happens because some believe Indians and Canada bring too much of India's problems with them along, like corruption, caste mentality, or outdated traditions, right? And which is also true to an extent, and others just don't want to be grouped together. Ironically, if you ask me, they still feel hurt when other communities treat them as outsiders. Social media and WhatsApp gossip culture. Indian immigrants are hyperconnected online, and unfortunately, that sometimes spreads more negativity than support. WhatsApp groups are filled with gossip about who failed, who succeeded, who got PR, who got rejected, and I've witnessed a Telugu based community which got partitioned, and there is already a Telugu association, and people didn't like the president and they tried to change the president doesn't want to step down, and they immediately started another Telugu association in competition to the already existing one. And that's how it happens, and it's the same Telugu association with, and both still exist on paper, but the second one got, I think, more the number of people, and they're still going on with whatever, but they really wanted to pulled on that president and wanted to create their own, and they did. And when that was happening, all of that, there were a lot of gossips in the WhatsApp. A lot of people started reaching out to me when I didn't even belong to their association. Started, gossiping about the president and all of these events that I do not have visibility to. That is sort of a political setup that you get to see here, and that's why I totally avoid the long language-based associations. And if you ask me what is the solution for all of this, not all Indian immigrants dislike each other, right? Many support, mentor, and uplift their community, while the other set of people who quarrel with each other exist everywhere. But the negativity is noticeable because it affects first impressions and everyday experiences for every single one of them. But how can we change this? I would say five things that you could probably keep in mind if you were to ever move to Canada or any of the countries. Matter if you're an older immigrant, new ones, instead of just judging for who they are, and break the status mindset. A truck driver, a software engineer, and a security guard all are working hard to earn money to live, right? And run their family. So I think typically we should respect that. And I'm totally against this. So stop the regional divide. We are all Indian, period. Support each other. Don't just compete with each other. There's enough success to go around. Go explore whatever your strengths are not mine and my strengths are not yours. I think we have a lot to explore in this beautiful country for sure. And create positive networks, whether it's about job referrals or housing help or financial advice. A stronger community benefits everyone. But is this even an issue that can be fixed tomorrow or tonight? Maybe not, but still it can be worked upon. Like Indian immigrants have built incredible businesses, communities, and social groups in Canada, right? In every province that they live in. The potential to grow together is huge, but only if we stop pulling each other down. And this is a habit that we all Indians carry. So I think we should stop doing that. The question is, can we really do it? Maybe, yes. But what do you think? Have you seen this kind of division in any other countries that you live, like US or UK or Australia or any other European countries? So we'd like to hear from you.